Now then, hobbyists. Obviously, as everyone knows, the first upgrade is bearings. It goes without saying, but that's part of the fun with hobby grade remote control cars, is upgrading and adding hop-ups to not only get more out of the car, but to have a bit of a tinker. The second upgrade is something that's worth considering. In a future video, I will explain all the upgrades I have recently done to the Tamiya Lunchbox that I have made, but I wanted to take this opportunity to show you how building oil shocks is not overly difficult, but make a drastic change from the pogo sticks it comes with. After looking online and looking at all the reviews and weighing up the cost, I did choose to go with the Tamiya product, as other third party stuff had mixed reviews, but the Tamiya 50520 C.V.A. set was designed for this job, and as you can see, they are suitable for a lot of the Tamiya range. But as you can see here, they are good for the front and the back of the Tamiya Lunchbox. The problem with this is, well, it's not really a problem, but for this project I needed front and back shocks, so I had to buy 2 sets as you only get 2 per pack. And as you can see, I have already built pack 1. They have a decent boying factor to them, and I only use the oil supplied. I use the piston ring with 2 holes as I'm looking for the Goldilocks effect. The tools needed are needle nose pliers, a pair of cutters, some normal pliers, and a Phillips screwdriver could help. In addition, some kitchen towel or blue roll is needed, but that's really all you need. Let's have a closer look at them. Once the pack is open, it's arranged with the usual Tamiya precision. They supply 2 sets of springs, one set is soft and the other is hard. Also, on the top row is the shock oil. This tends to be colour coded so you know how thick it is. The bottle is more than enough for 2 shocks, and as I also have some left over from the previous shocks and a recent build, I can leave this one sealed. Next up, we have the bag of bits, namely piston rods, O-rings, oil seals, connectors, screws, as well as the cursed E-rings. Although there seems to be a lot of part trees, there isn't, as don't forget, everything is duplicated. Finally, we have the instruction sheet. There are English translations, as you would imagine, but with all of the Tamiya range they do a cracking job with the pictures, so regardless of language, you should be able to muddle through. The way how I would go about this is to get everything ready, as I will be doing this in one sitting, so if everything is to hand it will stop a lot of faffing around later on. Also, again, everything is built in duplicate, so I find it easier to build both at the same time rather than completing one and then starting from scratch again. It just feels more logical, which is a strong point of Tamiya models. A top tip to save yourself from ferreting around in tiny bags, as we are all guilty of doing that, and as you don't want to lose anything, I find it helpful to tip the entire bag into a tub, so you can see any nut, bolt or screw you may need at ease. The eagle-eyed among you will notice that this is one of the tubs I picked up for free at an amusement arcade in Rill, so that's a thrifty find. Also, if I do locate any free magnets, I intend to glue them to the bottom. Minimal cost, maximum effect. According to the instructions, we start at point 1. We need the piston rod, the piston, where they give you a selection of 3 types, namely 1, 2 or 3 holes, and the more holes, the less resistance, making the suspension softer. As I have not fitted oil shocks to a Tamiya Lunchbox before, and I am using the standard oil, I opted to go with 2 holes so I can see how I get on. But we also have to add the E-rings to the piston rod. I will say now, I hate E-rings as they are fiddly and usually ping off across the room, so I spend ages with a torch trying to find them. I believe Tamiya does have an E-ring tool, but I've not seen it on any UK websites, so shipping makes it very expensive for what it is. Also, I'm not really a fan of tools that only do one job. I have a kitchen full of novelty rubbish, like claws for pulled pork, where forks would just do. My advice is use needle nose pliers, and look, as they do clip on, and when they are on they stay on. Maybe a strong magnet on a bit of string will also help. After the first E-ring is on, add the piston, As you can see, this is the one with the 2 holes. Once on, you can then move on to the fiddly job of adding the second E-ring. Any tips on how you deal with these, please comment below, as any help is gladly accepted. Anyway, this should be the first piston done, so basically just do it again with the other one. Step 2. The damper cylinder. This is where you need to get 2 of the O-rings inside the cylinder. What I do to make things easier, before I put the base of the cylinder on with the O-rings in, is add the piston with the spacer and then add the O-rings to the piston. The thread goes through the base. This way you're not fishing around to make sure that nothing has gone all wonky. It's not difficult, and then add the damper end. The instructions do suggest that you use pliers to grip tighter to get it on. This does scratch the rod ever so slightly, but as an afterthought there are 3 possible solutions. Number 1, deal with it, it's not that bad. Number 2, maybe put elastic bands around the jaws of the pliers so it can grip, as it's rubber on metal, so it shouldn't scratch. Number 3, again, Tamiya make an anti-scratch pair of pliers. My comment to this is exactly the same as mentioned earlier regarding the E-ring tool. Already we find ourselves at step 3. This is where we add the oil. Tamiya colour code its shock oil, as I would imagine others do, but yellow is the standard, and as I'm investigating which is best, this is a really good place to start. We will need the kitchen towel in case it spills. Well, it will spill, as you need to fill it, and it's all about surface tension. And as much as I'd love to go on about Kevin Costner's water world and water displacement theory, we need to get on with building these shocks. What I did forget to say is to make sure that the piston rod is pulled down, and when you think you filled it to the tippity top, slowly start pushing the rod upwards. What you should see is some tiny bubbles where unwanted air from the shock is starting to escape. This is exactly what should happen. Then, when it can't be pushed no further, pull the rod down. This will create more bubbles, and you'll notice the oil level will be dropping. Basically, add more oil and repeat until you see no more bubbles and it's chocked full of oil. I have seen it said that once it is filled to the brim, let it stand for a short while to make sure all the air has gone. My question is, what is considered a short while? So for me, it stood for the length of time I thought about letting it sit, shrug, and then I just fitted the oil seal. Again, at this point, kitchen roll comes in handy once again, and then it's time to fit the cylinder cap and tighten it up. It's also worth just making sure you've cleaned it down to make sure that it doesn't go gunky, or when you've put it on anything flat that it doesn't get all oily residue on it. And then it's time to make the other one. Right, step 4 out of 5. We are getting there now. This is where we add the coil spring. In the kit you get 2 sets of springs, 2 soft and 2 stiff. I am using the stiff spring. This just slides on. Then you can fit the spring end to the dampener end and the spacer required to the cylinder end. That's basically it for stage 4. All you need to do now for stage 5 is fit it to something. For me, I'm going to be popping it on my Tamiya Lunchbox. So, job done. 4 boingy springs. For fitting, there are some bits in the bag, but I did a bit of recycling and I used some of the screws from the pogo sticks and the ball joints as well, so the rest can go in my parts box. I hope this has been helpful. Please remember to like, feel free to comment, definitely subscribe, and hit that bell shaped thingy to be woken up at all hours. Anyway, for now, that's your lot.